In Tulsa King Season 3, Episode 6, Bubbles, the once great gangster series gradually starts to turn around and heal from the self-inflicted harm its previous few episodes have caused. Bubbles has a concentration and accuracy that Episode 4 and Episode 5 badly lacked, despite the fact that the show still battles to maintain balance this season with too many supporting narratives and two primary antagonists. The most recent Tulsa King episode definitely raises the stakes and makes it captivating television once more with the rising presence of Quiet Ray, played by James Russo. The loose approach to the storytelling this season is still not doing Tulsa King any favors. The notes of humor land more effectively in Bubbles, which nearly brings the series back to its Season 1 heyday. Among a variety of car scenes featuring road trips and phone calls, we discover that Special Agent Musso is holding Bevilacqua in custody for reasons yet to be explained, and Armand, who has been missing all season, is declared dead by suicide without much emotional impact. This episode really started picking up when Dwight took his meeting with Quiet Ray. After sharing a laugh about the prospect of being inducted into the Gangster Hall of Fame, Ray and Dwight were at each other's necks before Cole and his goons started firing on them. Now that Ray thinks Dwight set him up, he's proving himself to be a much bigger threat to Dwight than the increasingly dim-witted Dunmyers, who went from burning houses down to calling health inspectors. One of the more annoying aspects of Tulsa King is that Dwight has a superhero-like invisible shield around him that prevents him from ever getting hurt. I'm struggling to recall a single scene in which Dwight got hit in the entire series. When Quiet Ray grabbed Dwight's wrist and threatened him straight to his face, Dwight was truly humbled for the first time ever in the series. Even though the Dunmyers were the ones spraying bullets at the end of the episode, Quiet Ray holds the true power over Dwight. With that in mind, the Dunmyers are becoming more and more intolerable as TV villains. Cole is monumentally unlikable and driven by such desperation that it's just becoming pathetic. We can all agree to forget that random act of kindness that Cole did to protect Spencer, perhaps the most underutilized supporting character in the show's history, and the bizarre attempt at a romantic flair between them that felt copied right out of last week. Dunmyer, he asks in surprise after Dwight tells him. The bourbon maker. Then he quotes a price of $500,000, with half paid before the work gets started. Irked, Dwight goes into the bar's back room and pulls the bills from a safe, delivering them to Deacon in a satchel. "You're not a Fed, are ya?" Deacon asks right before he leaves, then says he was just joking. Either way, Dwight is not amused. First off, a super quick recap of Episode 5, On the Rocks, because it sets up everything for Episode 6. Dwight Manfredi and his crew are finally launching their Montague distillery with that stolen, recovered, 50-year-old bourbon called the 50. The party's buzzing, Bodie and Grace nailed the PR, Bigfoot's showing off his ice sculpting skills, earning him the nickname Yeti, and even Margaret's there with Cal Thresher in tow. But of course, nothing goes smooth in Tulsa. Jeremiah Dunmyer pulls a total power move by leaning on the Attorney General to send a corrupt inspector to shut things down. The inspector gets squished under falling barrels in a freak accident, thanks to Bigfoot's clumsiness, and now the crew's got a body to deal with. Dwight tells them to stage it as an accident for Bodie to discover in the morning. Meanwhile, Dwight's secretly picking up a bomb from the watchmaker, aka Deacon, the explosives expert, to hit back at Jeremiah for burning down his wind farm earlier in the season. Then, the party crashes hard when Jeremiah shows up with his posse, the AG, and some sheriffs. They destroy a barrel of the precious bourbon, brag about ruining Dwight's rep, and walk out like they own the place. Tensions peak when Bill Bevilacqua confronts Dwight about shady dealings and suspicions of betrayal. Dwight pulls a gun on him, but Bill calls his bluff and leaves, only to get swarmed and arrested by federal agents at a stoplight. Boom, episode ends on that cliffhanger. On screen, key images or text bullets of recap points. Now, what can we expect in episode 6? Tack. Let's break it down scene by scene, no holding back. Spoiler alert, this EP's all about loyalty tests, a brutal ambush, and Dwight facing his past in the most OG way possible. The episode builds to Dwight cornered in an abandoned oil rig, Jeremiah and Cole closing in, Musso's feds circling like vultures. Dwight's bleeding out, flashing back to his prison days with Pops, the OG reference. He calls in a favor from an unlikely ally, Bill Brewer, who hates Jeremiah more. Boom, a hail of gunfire from Brewer's boys turns the tide. But the real gut punch? Tina walks in on Dwight mid-deal, gun in hand, and whispers, "It's over." Does she pull the trigger? Trailer cuts to black on her finger trembling. She doesn't shoot, it's a fake-out to force Dwight legit. But Cole escapes, setting up episode 4's manhunt. This ending screams, family first, forcing the general to evolve or die. Jeremiah made it clear in the premiere that he was going to be an obstacle, burning down Theo's country manse, with him in it, as revenge for selling his distillery to Dwight. And in the true manner of someone used to having things their way, Jeremiah isn't subtle about who was to blame. His goons brag about it in public. He and Cole show up at Theo's funeral. The whole thing's a theatrical message to Dwight, a way to compel him to take the money, 3 times what he paid, that Jeremiah is offering for the distillery. But Dwight doesn't take kindly to threats, and he's no fool either. If Jeremiah is offering that much for a distillery that hasn't turned a profit in years, there has to be a reason. The clue's in the title, the 50. Cleo reveals that Theo was sitting on a batch of 5-decade-old vintage bourbon that can fill 250 bottles at thousands of dollars a pop. Jeremiah knew it existed, but not where. It's the profit payload that Dwight needs to justify the risks associated with the booze business, and it's a compelling enough fortune to sway Bill to get in on the action to help with distribution. Even Cal Thresher, now a gubernatorial candidate, is reluctantly in Dwight's pocket, there to smooth over any complications with a few political favors should the need arise. That it feels like a win, but is it really? Tulsa King Season 3, Episode 2 reintroduces all of these key players but makes it very clear that they can't be relied upon. Bill is still on conspiratorial terms with Vince back in New York, whose takeover of the Invernizzi family seems to have backfired, and Cal would just as soon have Dwight killed as work with him. And everyone seems to know that Jeremiah means business. He's a credible threat, and he has no shortage of targets he can lean on to hurt Dwight. He sends Cole and some goons after Mitch, and while that ambush backfires, it proves he's willing to take action. Cole also seems to target Spencer at the end of the episode, who may prove a weak link. Then there's Bodie, whose lust for revenge is preventing him from making peace with Bill's men, and Tyson's father, Mark, whose reluctant agreement to fix the distillery's pipes might count as collusion as far as someone like Jeremiah is concerned. What I'm curious about, at least for now, is how all these major players and conflicting allegiances can all fit together into a coherent season. The only real downside of the 50 is that it all unfolds at such a clip that it can feel as if individual moments don't have much space to breathe. This is fine when it comes to, say, Tyson's relationship with Mark, since that has been ebbing and flowing since the very first season, but Mitch and Cleo, by comparison, feels a bit more forced. There's also a subplot involving Goody trying, hilariously, it must be said, to track down Armand, but one has to wonder whether we need yet another angle to be concerned about. Time will tell. If I had to make a prediction, I'd say that several main characters probably won't survive this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if at least one was killed off sooner rather than later to really set the stakes. Theo's death was tragic, but we just met him. If Jeremiah's whole thing is hitting close to home, everyone in Dwight's inner circle should be worried, and the vibe this season is giving off thus far is that it won't be pulling any punches. Flashback montage shows Mitch's subtle leaks to Dunmire for a cut of the action, driven by resentment over Jimmy's death and feeling sidelined. Dunmire monologues about old money versus your street scraps, then signals Russell to rough up Dwight. Dwight fights back ferociously, flips a table, cracks a bottle over a goon's head, but gets outnumbered. He escapes barely, bloodied, stealing a ledger proving Mitch's betrayal. Back at HQ, confrontation time, Mitch confesses, tearful, "You promised us the world, Dwight." Dunmire offered security. Dwight doesn't kill him, yet, cold mercy, "You're out. But if you breathe a word." Cue Mitch's exile, staring at the crew like a ghost.
Armand Truisi's ever sadder Tulsa King story has come to an end. The former